My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my list of my 15 favorite characters from Arcane. Now, I was originally going to do a video ranking the characters from worst to best, but there were so many characters to talk about, so I figured I would just do a top 15 list. And also, I've talked about this show excessively. It's my favorite show ever. I absolutely love it. So I'm not going to go as in depth with this list as I could, just because I don't want to be repeating all of the same stuff. So that said, let's begin our list with number 15, and it's Singed. He is the Doctor character, who we don't see a lot of, but he has a real villainous presence to him that I really enjoy. And even though, like I said, we don't see him a lot, if you look between the lines, you do gain a sense of who he is as a person. We know that he lost his daughter, that he became obsessed with trying to preserve life after death, how he was partners with Heimerdinger, but Heimerdinger left him. In just a few short lines, we understand that he lost his daughter, he couldn't take it, and he tried to find a way to preserve life after death, a pursuit that drove his best friend and his partner away from him. In the shortest amount of time, in the fewest lines, we gain a full sense of who this character is and what he's gone through, and that is just impressive all on its own, and that's why he is my 15th favorite character. My 14th favorite character is Ambisa, who is Mel's mom, and when Mel's talking about her mom, I'm just like, how could anyone make Mel feel small? How? Like, she's just a real independent character that I really love. Who could possibly make her feel small? And then as soon as we see her mom, you're just like, okay, it makes sense now. She has a real commanding presence to her. She's big, she's tough, she's strong, but she's also very sly and manipulative. I love how she tries to get Mel to engage in war, and when she won't, she goes over to Jace and tries to get him to. It's a very smart tactic of hers, and I also like how she's the physical representation of Nexus at this point. It's just a preview of what's to come. And I also do love the fact that when Mel confronts her, she's just like, why did you leave me after all those years? And she's just like, because you made me weak. I couldn't make those necessary decisions that I had to make with you looking at me. And just in that one moment, she has a lot more depth to her, and depth that ties into the main idea of the show. So I think in such a short period of time, she's given plenty of depth. She has a great presence to her, and I got a feeling we're going to see a lot more of her in Season 2, and I can't wait. So that's why she's my 14th favorite character. My 13th favorite character is Caitlyn, and this is a character who I feel like is a lot higher on lots of people's lists, and she has the potential for that in future seasons, but as of right now, 13 is a good spot. You know, she's kind of like the Disney princess character. She feels like an outsider. She's a misfit. She longs for adventure and something more. And she gets it. And it's not quite what she expected. And I like how she gains some perspective on Sion and how it operates, which allows her to be more sympathetic. And I also like the banter between her and Vi. The two are very opposite, but that what makes them work so well together. But that said, mini rant. As someone who loves this show, it is bloody annoying that all anybody can talk about with this show is Vi and Caitlyn. The relationship is sweet. I love both of them as characters, but my goodness, like the way that people are obsessed with it is just obnoxious. Like, my goodness. But yes, that aside, I still find Caitlyn to be a great character, and that's why she's in number 13 place. My 12th favorite character is another character who's not in the show a whole bunch, and it's Grayson. And I think my favorite thing about this character is the voice of the actress Shoria Agdashlu, who I just think brings a lot to her. She brings a very unique, commanding presence to her. She always has some sort of control over what's happening. And you can see that she's truly trying to do what's right. For a group of people like the Enforcers, for us to view them as badly as we do, she brings some perspective to them that there are also some people just trying to do the right thing. In Grayson's case, she actually does. She makes the right deals with the right people. She's like the anti-Marcus in every possible way, and I just think that the showtime she was in the show, she was a real standout. So that's why she's in 12th place. In 11th place, I just mentioned him, but it's Marcus. I think this is a character who is fully fleshed out and developed, and they didn't even need to do that. In any other show, this character would be the corrupt cop character. That would be the one defining character trait of him. But in this show, they just give him so much depth, and just they find a way to sympathize with him. He's a character who always dreams of doing the right thing, but he gets in too deep with the wrong people and he can't find a way out, and that what makes him very compelling. He knows that he's being a bad person. He knows that he's doing bad things, but he can't find a way to get out of it without possibly endangering his daughter. And that just makes for a very complex character. The fact that he keeps the coin that's covered in Grayson's blood with him all those years just shows how he never moved on from that, how he hates himself and what he becomes. And it's very clear in quite a few moments. That scene where Enemy's playing and he's just mad at what he's doing, you just see the struggles of him showcased so perfectly. And he always dreams of one day overcoming Selco. You know, that one scene where you think that he pulled the trigger and he blew himself up with Selco. He views himself that way, but he's just not that person. He's not that strong. And I also love the fact that he didn't even get to finish his last words. He was going to say, "Tell my daughter I love her," but he just couldn't finish it. Like, he couldn't finish anything else in his life. And my goodness, like, he's such a great character. He's a number 11, but man, this character is great. My 10th favorite character is Echo. Echo isn't in the show a whole bunch, but in the showtime he is in it. Like everyone else, he's still given plenty of depth and nuance. I love how he's this great leader. He's what Sion actually deserves. He does care about the people. He wants to actually give them the best life. Not at any price, but just focus on giving them the best quality of life. That makes him an inspiring leader in some ways. But also to be a leader, he also tries to come across as cold and as objective as possible. But there's moments where we see the real him. The little child who just lost his surrogate father and is just lost in this world. The moment where he tries to act tough towards Vi, and then Vi knows he's putting up a charade, and she just goes over and hugs him, and we just see how he presents himself fall apart, and we just see the real broken him. How he keeps saying, "Jinx is gone. There is no more powder." And then when given the chance, he can't bring himself to finish her off. This character is so fantastic. I also like the fact that this might be one of the very few characters in the show that has a unique style behind him. Like his introduction in the later episodes, we've got this graffiti art, which I really love. You've got this soundtrack, which works really well with this character. So I really love that about him too. And man, this character is so great. I can't believe he's only in 10th place, but that just shows you how good of a show we're talking about here. My 9th favorite character is Heimerdinger. Heimerdinger could have easily been the cliche, old, wise character. It could have been a character that we've seen time and time again, but this character is given a lot more complexity behind that. Because he's so old, he does have a lot of wisdom. He does have a lot of knowledge on what can come, what has come, and he feels for that. But also with all the age that grants him that wisdom and knowledge, also comes his inability to sympathize with humans. He doesn't understand humans' desire to live. And he doesn't understand legacy. He doesn't understand any of that because he is immortal. So the very thing that makes this character as knowledgeable and as wise as he is the very same thing that allows him to be inapproachable and detached from everyone else. And I just think that was a brilliant way to approach this character. And I also love how he ends off looking to gain perspective. He goes to Sion just looking to understand it and understand the people. And he was going to give up until he finds Echo and he finds something to strive for with him. And I'm really excited to see where these characters go in the next season. But man, this is such a brilliantly written, complex character with a very unique presence to him as well. So that's why he's in ninth place. My eighth favorite character is Mel. Now, Mel, when we first see her, I thought she was going to be a very cliche, bland character, but the more the show progresses and the more we learn about her, the more you understand just how brilliantly complex this character is. The very first time we see her, she's picking out a gift for another council member. It's a children's toy. And she gives it to him, tells him it's a puzzle made by the greatest, most brilliant man ever. And she uses that to gain his vote later on. So we gain a sense of how manipulative she is. She tries to get Jace to do what she wants. But as the show progresses, we also start to see that she of herself is just as broken as anyone else. That she didn't live up to her parents' expectations, that she was cast out from her family, and that she's just another person just trying to do right. She understands how the council and the politics in this world works, and she uses that to her advantage any way she can. And the way her character arc wraps up with her taking off the ring and doing the right thing, it might be her very final character beat, but if so, that's a strong character beat to end on. And I also do like the relationship that forms between her and Jace. It's not in your face, but it does feel really realistic, and you can just tell that she loves the fact that that Jace actually wants to spend time with her and tell her things. She's never had that before. So yes, I think Mel is just a fantastic character, and that's why she's in 8th place. In 7th place, we've got Savika, who could have just been the cliche henchman to the main villain, but man, she is so much more than that. I can't wait to see where they take this character in future seasons, but the foundation set up here is so flawless. She was with Vando until she felt like he was getting weak, and he was betraying the cause. So then she goes to Selco, who she feels was the right man for the job. She was willing to lose an arm to protect him because her one and only priority is the cause. And that's caused her to be distant from Vando, and now Selco, who she sees as falling into the same trappings. She tells him that Jinx slipped up, and Selco won't do anything about it. So I just love the fact that she's the villain who tries to stay as objective as possible without gaining any bit of sympathy for anyone, because she sees where that leads her. And just on top of that, I just love her presence. I think she's a real intimidating, threatening villain. The robotic arm is badass as hell. Her fight scenes are some of the best action in this entire show. She's a character. And I also love the conflict she has with both Vi and Jinx. Just two very different kinds of conflict. One more internal, the other more external, but compelling nonetheless. Just such a great, fantastic character, and that's why she's in 7th place. In 6th place, we've got Jace, and Jace is just such a compelling character. I'm not gonna lie, the first time I watched this show, I thought his story was the least interesting of the bunch, and by default, that's still probably true, but man, over time, I've come to appreciate this character and his story a lot more, because I think there is so much depth and complexities on display. He basically represents the naive view. He wants to change the world without taking anything else into consideration. Not how the world works, he just thinks that the world is right and wrong, and that's where he chooses to view it. But throughout this entire show, he gets his worldview challenged time and time again, and it just makes for some of the most compelling character stuff. At the very beginning, we see why he views magic the way that he does. It saved his mom. So he views it as this miracle that needs to be shared with everyone. He has nothing but the best intentions. But he doesn't put how it can also cause harm and damage to other people into account. He loses his job, his school, just everything, to the point where he was suicidal. But in one last desperate attempt, him and Victor tried to find a way to stabilize it, and they succeeded. And he becomes everyone's favorite golden boy of the town. Everyone looks at him with nothing but the most utmost admiration. They look at him as the guy who changed everything. But he doesn't view himself that way. He just views himself as someone who wants to do the right thing. But then when the council member position gets forced onto him, what's wrong, what's right and what's wrong gets a lot more blurred. He sees the manipulation that goes on behind the scenes, but how you can still use that to do good. He wants to go after Selco, but in his first desperate attempt to bring him down, he ends up taking an innocent life. To the point where he just wants to be like, no, we need to do the right thing. We need to just give them what they want. And I just think that makes him a very compelling character because he starts off thinking right is right, wrong is wrong, but then he starts to discover the blurred lines between it all and how that fleshes him out as a character. Just so well written. I love him, and that's why he's in 6th place. And in 5th place, we've got the character of Victor, who is a character who is so worried about death and legacy, and it becomes all the more clear when we discover that he himself is dying. He doesn't know what kind of legacy he's going to be behind. He doesn't know if anyone's going to kill that he's gone. So he becomes more and more obsessed with this hex technology, wanting to speed up any bit of development in a very short time. Without putting anyone's considerations into account, he ends up costing the life of Sky, someone who looked up to him and someone who he never took the time to get to know. And just in that realization, he realized how badly he messed up. And I think his character arc is strong from beginning to end. He's a character who's in the pursuit of power and of knowledge, only to come back down to earth at the very end. And just the way that it goes, I think is very effective. I think it's very well told. And I also love some of the visual parallels in his story, especially when he's chasing after the boat and then later he's running way past the boat. This shows you how far he's come. But in one, he's heading in the right direction. The other one, he's heading in the wrong direction. I can't wait to see where they take his character in season 2. I just think this character's got unique quality, super well written, got an emotional story to really keep him grounded. Just great character work all around. Okay, in 4th place, we've got Vando. And Vando is another character who's not in the show a whole bunch, but you feel his presence throughout. You feel what he stood for, what he meant to people, all the way to the end. J.B. Blanc adds a lot to this character. And we understand that he was a man who was once ready for war. He wanted to fight, whatever it took to get things done. But how having a family changed his perspective. It made him want to be better and to prevent war at any cost. How he came to care for Vi and wanted to help her become a leader. I love the relationship between the two of them. And I love how he's not willing to fight Selco at all until his family is in danger. Only then is he willing to. And it just shows what he stands for in such a clear, perfect way with lots of emotional significance to it. And his death does have a lot of impact, but that scene where Vi imagines Vando and he's telling her to get up, it's not going to get easier, but your sister needs you. It just shows what he represents to Vi. And man, this character in just such a short period of time, he's so great. So that's why he's in 4th place. So for the final 3 characters on this list, these are 3 of my favorite characters in any story ever. Like, all 3 of these characters would probably be in a top 10 character list of anything. Like, that's how much I love these next 3 characters. And that said though, the order was very easy for me to come up with. So in 3rd place, we've got Vi, who is voiced so perfectly by Haley Steinfeld, easily her best performance, and that's coming from a very talented actress. This character is just so perfectly written, and I don't think enough people talk about how tragic of a character she is, just due to the tragic nature of Jinx's story. But Vi herself does have a tragic story. Powder is the character motivation for almost every single one of Vi's actions, for better or for worse throughout this entire season. She wants Powder to live in a better world. She wants Powder to be safe. And she wants to help that world be given to her. So she's willing to do whatever it takes. But Vando helps bring her down to earth and realize that if you go down that road, you could lose everyone you care about. Vando also has some teachings to her about how whatever happens to the people who look up to you falls on you. That's responsibility you bear as leader. And the way that she treated Powder in that one moment, you understand it. She just lost everyone as a result of Powder's actions. As a result of Powder not listening to her. But it's too late. In that one moment, the damage was done. You understand her, but it was still the wrong thing to do. And that's the complexity behind this show that I really love. And just the fact that she clings to the past of the Powder that she once knew just adds lots of heartbreaking elements to this character. Like that scene where she finishes beating up Savika and she just lets out that scream. She really has lost everyone and everything. Powder was the one thing keeping her alive. And she lost that as a result of her actions. I could go into this character even longer, but just such a great character with so much depth and nuance, and that's why she's my third favorite character in this show. And in second place would be Selco. Now, when we first get introduced to Selco, I was just like, oh, so this is going to be like the cliche generic villain, kind of like Dr. Claw and Inspector Gadget. But as the show progresses, we start to realize that he's anything but that. This character has so much depth and nuance behind him, and he's a truly complex character in every way. To the point where the biggest debate I've seen with this show is whether or not Selco's a bad guy. People very passionate on both sides, but just the fact that there's so much debate going on about this character just shows how brilliantly written he is. Now, one thing nobody mentions about him that I love his style. Like, everyone else in Sion kind of has a trashy look to them. But Selco, he dresses up nice, proper, and I love that about him. And I also love how he presents himself. He's always trying to come across as confident, even if he's not. Like, near the end of this season, Savika tries to kill him, and he talks her out of it at the last second. And we can just see how shaken up he is by that. As soon as he realizes that he's okay, he composes himself and says what he needs to. It's just a small detail that just makes this character infinitely more compelling than a character who's always presenting himself in one way. We see the way this character is and the way he tries to come across, and I just think that makes him all the more compelling. But everything actually serving as a character motivation is just the result of a broken man. He was betrayed by Vando, or at least that's the way he feels, after Vando left the cause to take care of his kids. So because of that, he always views Vando as weak and pathetic. And then he starts to raise Powder as his own, and he really starts to care for her. Whenever someone says something against her, he stands up for her. To the point where he eventually is willing to give up the entire cause for his daughter. He becomes everything that he hated about Vando. And I just think that is the greatest character arc you could have given him. The moment where he's at the fountain is like a 45-second scene, but my goodness, it breaks me to tears almost every single time. Just the way that he acknowledges his mistakes and how he, despite Jinx giving him nothing but problems, he can't give her up. And I just think that just makes all the more compelling character. And if there's any doubt about his love for Jinx, after she kills him, instead of freaking out at her, he wants to lose his dying breath to assure her that he never would have given her to them, that he loves her, and that she's perfect. Everything that Jinx needed to hear, she heard in that one moment. And my goodness, does it break my heart every single time. To watch a character just pull a 180 in the span of one season like this, with so much emotion and depth behind him, And every awful thing he does, and he does do a lot of awful things, it does come from good intentions. Doesn't make the awful things any less awful, but it does provide some sense of complexity to him as a character instead of painting him as a cliche villain. So just everything about this character works for me so well. If we don't count Jinx as a villain, this is probably my favorite villain in any story. But my favorite character, not just of this show, but of any story ever, is without any doubt Jinx. This character is just perfect in every possible way. Ella Purnell gives one of the greatest performances ever voicing her. Just the amount of depth that she's able to give her. Even when Jinx is making a joke and trying to sound funny, you can hear some pain in the back of her voice. And I just think it captures how this is a character in pain, just trying her best to come across like she's not. And you just fully understand that. This is a tragic character. From the very beginning, we see how she's mocked and ridiculed and how she's blamed for just about everything. It really allows us to sympathize with her because we know that she's just trying her best. But her best never seems to be good enough. Everything Milo says about her is technically correct. Now, he's a dick for saying it, but it's technically correct. The explosion in the apartment was her fault. It was her fault that they lost everything. But she's just trying her best, and you understand that. The only person who she feels like she has an actual relationship with is Vi. Vi is a character who believes in her, who tells her that she's more than what everyone else says. So in episode 3, when Vi's just like, no, you need to stay back. You're not ready. All of Powder's insecurities rise to the surface. And she's just not able to cope with it. So the only thing that she is left to do is try to prove her wrong. Prove that she is ready, that she can do it. So she goes out and tries to save Vi, Vando, Milo, and Clago. But in doing so, she makes things infinitely more worse. She just wants to do right. And what makes this even more tragic is the fact that she always tries to build these little bombs and they never work. And it finally works. And she gets so much satisfaction from that moment, only for it to cause so much pain. Just that when she goes out into the alley and she's just like, did you see that? My bomb finally worked. You can just tell that she's happy with what she did. She feels like she just saved them all. And she doesn't realize that she was playing with powers that she doesn't understand. And she got Vando, Milo, and Clago killed. And it's a very tragic moment. Like, for this entire show to work as well as it does, it needed this moment to have the impact it has. And my goodness, Mia St. Clair's performance here is just absolutely phenomenal and heartbreaking. It just adds to the tragic nature of this story. But when she breaks down into tears, you just feel the weight of the world crushing down on her. And then Vi hits her and calls her a Jinx. And it does damage to her that can never be undone. The one person she looked to for approval just reassured her of all of her insecurities, and to her knowledge left her. So of course she grabs onto the first person who gives her any bit of attention. It's what any kid would do in that situation. And the way she ends up, is it Selco's fault? Vi's fault? The council's fault? It's a mix of all three. You know, the first time that we see Jinx, we see that she's a completely different person. That she's more lethal, that she's better at fighting, but we also see that she's broken and that she's not quite the villain that I'm sure she's going to become. She thinks that that one person with the red hair is Vi, and she just drops everything and freaks out, and we just see that, oh, she's not over anything, even remotely. And it makes perfect sense. Most people would never get over something like that. And then we kind of see how Selco is just like, take some time off. And she took it as an attack on her character. So she had to prove Selco that She can do it. Except this time she did what she set out to do, and Selco was thankful that she did. She's still looking for that gratification, for the acknowledgement that she's done good. It just so happens that Selco is a bad guy. And then just throughout this show, as she tries to reunite with Vi, but just circumstances get in the way and drift them apart and just falls her apart. Even when Vi leaves her on the bridge, between that and her fighting a childhood friend, she literally wanted to die on the bridge. That bomb was a suicide attempt. And Selco's left to pick up the pieces, and in doing so, she gets infected with Shimmer to the point where any resemblance of Powder is gone permanently. She kidnaps everyone to try to just figure things out to see if it helps her. Well, Vi accepts her for who she is. Does Selco actually care about her? And when Vi tries to remind her of everyone, she does so much more additional damage to Jinx that it breaks her more and more until she accidentally kills Selco. And that realization of what she's done, she breaks down. She's sorry, she's apologetic, and she heals the affirmation of love that she's needed to heal her entire life. The affirmation of love that Vi should have given her all those years ago, but it just cemented her fate. She did the right thing. She protected her sister, but yet she's only more broken. And just nothing's going to fix her at this point. Her attacking the council isn't an act of hatred, it's just an act of pure pain, and you really feel that. When she's crying as she fires that weapon, it just breaks my heart time and time again. This is such a brilliantly complex and layered character, brought to life so perfectly by Ella Purnell, and as tragic and as great of a character as she is, she also cracks me up. She's got this bigger-than-life personality that I really love. She's got so many great lines that she cracks me up, like when she's blowing on Selco's eye medicine thing, when she's just talking to Savika. I feel like you and I got off on the wrong arm. Maybe we should try the other one. Just line after line, she cracks me up, and you always get the sense that whenever she's trying to make a joke or make light of a serious situation, that she's just using that to get by. And just everything about this character worked for me on every single level. I think it's a fantastic character with a great personality, with plenty of depth. Just everything about her absolutely worked, and that is why she is my favorite character, not just of the show, but ever. But yes, what are your favorite characters from Arcane? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe. Stay tuned for some more videos soon, and Gavin out.